Hitler tried to bring out a perfect race, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Superman. He believed Europeans were superior and the blonde-haired, blue-eyed were the ultimate example of the most purest European. So why in 1935 did he support Persia changing its name to Iran? Interestingly, Iran means land of the Aryans, those Aryans. The truth behind the word Iran and why Hitler was interested in it is quite interesting and not what you might expect.
History on this day in 1935, Persia was renamed as Iran, land of Aryans.
Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan. To the Western mind, they can just seem like all different Arab states. Except, Iranians are not Arab at all. In fact, if you were to call an Iranian an Arab, it would be like calling a Japanese person Chinese. Iranian people actually are a completely different ethnic group to all the other countries surrounding them. So what's the deal? Who are the Iranians? And what's their connection with Nazi Germany? So, in 1935, Persia changed its name to Iran, but the people who had lived there had actually always called themselves Iranian or Aryan. The word Aryan is actually a very, very old word. Arya means noble or civilized, and so an Aryan is a civilized person or a noble person. But the origin actually goes back 3,500 years before this time. A mysterious group of people we still don't know much about today, who we just call the Indo-Europeans, invaded parts of the Middle East and India. These people are the originators of all Europeans, but interestingly, they also broke off into Iran and India, meaning Iranians are actually more closely related to Europeans than they are to any of the Arabic countries around them. So you're probably still thinking, how does this relate to Hitler and his Übermensch? Well, a lot of this history was forgotten until the 19th century. In the 19th century, English linguists were translating Sanskrit texts from British India. The linguists who studied this were kind of surprised. They thought Sanskrit would be its own little language category. But these linguists found that Sanskrit actually was closely related to Persian, the Iranian language, to Latin, and to Greek, even some words connecting to the Germanic English. They couldn't get their head around it at first, and then they found out through language science that this revealed a forgotten shared history of these countries, India, Europe, and Iran. In the oldest of these texts, it talks of a group of people called the Aryans, a noble warrior race who came from a distant land and invaded and devastated the locals. There's hardly anything mentioned about them, but the things that were mentioned about them are really interesting. Firstly, there's a verse in the Rig Veda, that's one of the Sanskrit texts, the oldest one, that has been quoted and twisted by white supremacists for over a century. Rig Veda 5:29-10 says, Indra, that's their deity, you destroyed the noseless Dasyas and protected the Aryan Varna. This word Varna is where it gets confusing. Varna means like color or could mean race or social status. Anyway, along the way, some very white-centric Europeans translated this as pure, the Aryan purity, even going as far to say as the Aryan whiteness. And this is where it gets misunderstood. Linguists today say Aryan Varna actually likely refers mostly to social or religious identity, not to skin tone. And what about noseless Dasyas? Was that a racist jab at some other nation's features? Well, apparently, according to the context, this is just ancient poetic trash talk. Noseless is like saying spineless. But the Nazis took this and ran with it. Hitler was trying to build nationalism for the German people who many were blonde hair and blue-eyed. In their mind, there was all different Europeans, but the blonde and blue must be the purest form of European. And then you get this story from Sanskrit texts which talks about a noble warrior race taking over other nations and being blessed by the gods. He mixed this with it, saying that this must be the Aryans, the purest form of Indo-Europeans. Except the real Aryans would have been brown-skinned, Central Asian, and speaking Sanskrit. The Nazis, obsessed with purity, ancestry, mythology, grabbed hold of the word Aryan and twisted it as propaganda. What once meant a spiritual ideal in ancient India became a racial fantasy in the 20th century Germany. To Hitler, the Aryans weren't Indo-European anymore. They were tall, blonde hair, blue-eyed. In fact, this is also where the swastika comes in. You might have been like me. I always thought swastika was a German word. Turns out it's an ancient Sanskrit word too. It's even linked to the Thai word sawatika, which means good day or goodwill. You might have gone through perhaps a Buddhist or Hindu country and been surprised at the amount of Nazis there. But what the Nazis did is they took this symbol, also an ancient Western symbol by their reasoning, turned it on its side, and this became the symbol for pure Western idealism. What once was a sign of peace and prosperity became a global icon of hate and destruction. But we still have a little reminder that the Aryans weren't blonde hair and blue-eyed Nazis. Iran. They've got the name and they've been calling themselves this for thousands of years. I find this really interesting. Depending on time and place, symbols and names can have complete different meanings, but usually a little hint survives. Iran, India, Europe were all threads in a much older tapestry than we realize. These ancient cultures weren't isolated. They were part of a vast, moving web of languages, migrations, and shared myths. The word Aryan once connected people through language and values, not race or borders. The swastika used to stand for peace, not power. But over time, these meanings were reshaped, sometimes forgotten, and sometimes deliberately twisted. Sometimes understanding the past means reading words again before they were corrupted, before they were weaponized, and before they became lies we forgot were lies.